What's going on, folks? Good NFL fans. This is going to be week one, episode one of a podcast that for now I'm going to call Digge's Huddle. I kind of like that. But if you think it should be something else, drop that down in the comments. And I'm really excited to be here making this podcast because I have a ton of opinions about the NFL, about college, about a lot of different sports and a lot of different things, but this is going to be mostly focused on the NFL. My Giants videos will still be here for Giants fans that are checking. And without any further ado, let's talk some football. We had some football yesterday. It was satisfying. I mean, to turn on the TV, you got NBC. I missed the original Sunday Night Football announcing crew. But Mike Tirico, I can deal with him. And Chris Collinsworth is still there. And it was a show. I mean, we got a crazy game week one. First game of the year, week one. And he literally lost the game. And when I say he, I mean Isaiah Likely literally lost because his big toe was out of bounds. His big toe is on the white line. And because of that Kevin Durant-esque type of error, the Ravens didn't tie the game, didn't get to go for two, and ended up in a situation where game was over. Now, a lot of people are going to talk about those two plays before that, where Lamar Jackson had a chance to hit Isaiah Likely on this corner out going to the outside and couldn't make that throw. And then he had a miscommunication with Zay Flowers. A lot of people think he just kind of straight up missed that. When I look at that, the more I see it, it looks like he expected Zay Flowers to sit in that zone. He didn't. He says by his own mouth that he was trying to throw the ball to Rashad Bateman. But when you look at the game and the tape, doesn't make any sense that he would be trying to throw that ball to Rashad Bateman. So I'm thinking it was a miscommunication between him and Zay Flowers, and he just didn't want to throw Zay Flowers under the bus because the fans will forgive Lamar. They will not forgive Zay Flowers. So looking at these two quarterbacks, I mean, two former two-time MVPs, both were not necessarily in tip-top shape. Mahomes definitely looked good. Lamar Jackson, he had a couple of spotty moments like the fumble. Patrick Mahomes had the interception, the crazy interception. I don't know where he was throwing that to. And then Lamar Jackson just missed a couple of throws in this game that I think if he hits, the Baltimore Ravens probably win this game. And it really just showed that even on their worst days, they still made this a game to remember. I mean, they still pretty much both put up 27 points. Lamar, I mean, he couldn't throw a better ball to Isaiah Likely at the back of the end zone like he did. He just couldn't get his feet down. So taking a look at really some of the issues that stood out to me on Baltimore's team, the offensive line, as of right now, the offensive line is an issue for Baltimore. Now, are they going to fix that? I would assume that line continues to get better. I mean, the announcers, I mean, they kept going on and on about how it was a new offensive line and it would get better. And Lamar Jackson lost 15 pounds, and that's why he can finally run again. They kind of focus on those two topics most of the night, but I do think that offensive line needs to tighten up. Lamar Jackson was under a ton of pressure, which caused him to have over 120 rushing yards, and he really, I mean, he ran the ball more times than Derrick Henry did. He had 16 carries. Lamar Jackson, after losing that weight that he lost, you don't want Lamar Jackson. You do absolutely not want Lamar Jackson out there running the ball more than your 250-pound, 260-pound running back that you brought in to be the bell cow. I don't want Lamar being the bell cow. I think Lamar is going to be, he's a great runner. He's an all-time great running quarterback, but I don't necessarily want him to be my bell cow runner when I have Derrick Henry in the backfield. And speaking of Derrick Henry, I really didn't think they gave him all that much opportunity to control this game. Now, the offensive line did not block well for him when they did run early on, and they just kind of abandoned it and just kind of leaned on Lamar, which is fine. But I'm hoping that Derrick Henry can sort of find his footing in this new offense, on this new team, behind this new offensive line, and they can sort of start to take some of that pressure off of Lamar Jackson. Because when you look at the team, I mean, he's got Isaiah Likely, who really balled out. The dude is a guy. He's got Mark Andrews, who, I mean, he just didn't look right yesterday. He's got Zay Flowers, and then he's got a whole lot of nothing. So he needs Derrick Henry, and they took him out a bunch. I mean, every time they took Derrick Henry out, they threw the ball. Every time they put Derrick Henry in, they ran the ball. So that's something I expect to improve for the Baltimore Ravens. And I definitely have got to find a way to get Derrick Henry the football on a regular basis, because Lamar should not be running that much. Week in and week out, that just can't happen. But speaking of Isaiah Likely, I mean, he showed some agility. He showed the ability to high point the ball. He literally caught a ball where he was surrounded by defenders. And as a tight end, super athletic guy, is able to kind of spin out of that, juke outside, and go 40 yards for a touchdown. So Isaiah Likely, I think this was his coming out game, and I think he's going to be one of the premier tight ends in this game. Lamar has already shown that he can get the ball to the tight end. And as Mark Andrews gets more healthy, more comfortable, I think Mark Andrews is also going to return to form, and he'll have a two-headed monster there at tight end and Zay Flowers to kind of pick up the pieces in the middle. So I think that'll be formidable as this season goes along. Now, I've talked a lot so far about the Ravens, and let's talk about the team that actually won. Patrick Mahomes, vintage Mahomes, a couple of great throws, a couple of throws where he completely escaped the entire pass rush, is scrambling outside, and throws the ball downfield and gets completions. They busted the coverage on Xavier Worthy, and that really is what lost them the game. And I mean, Mahomes, if he can turn Xavier Worthy into 70% of what Tyreek Hill is, expect Mahomes to have another MVP season, because there's no way to stop Mahomes from throwing 35 plus touchdowns if he has this much of a weapon. I mean, a guy that can stretch the field this much. Xavier Worthy is looking like one of the first speed guys out of this draft, or out of these last, 10 drafts, that looks like he might be a guy. I mean, Jaylen Waddle, sure, looked amazing in college and is doing the same thing in Miami, but you think of guys like me being a Giants fan, Jalen Hyatt hasn't really gotten to stretch his legs. He's going into year two. You look at, John Ross, who didn't really do much besides a couple of deep passes every here and there. And then looking at, Henry Ruggs, obviously that didn't work out. Rest in peace to the people that he ended up running into. But he's looking like one of these speed guys that is actually going to translate to being an effective downfield weapon with Patrick Mahomes, which is going to be exciting for the league, exciting for people to watch, but also a nightmare for NFL defenses if Patrick Mahomes is going to have this level of a weapon. Again, the Bills allowed him to get Tyreek Hill part two. It's looking like, because on that reverse, Xavier Worthy was within a yard or two of at least 8 defenders, and he just ran past all of them. It was like he couldn't be touched. It was like he was running at a completely different frequency than everybody else. So I wanted to cover that, and also just talk about how great of a job the Chiefs defense did against Lamar Jackson. All of those yards were because people were covered that Lamar Jackson ran. He's going to get his. He's an MVP player. But the Chiefs defense, McDuffie looked great. Gave up pretty much nothing to Zay Flowers. And then Chris Jones completely controlled the game. And Spags, shout out to Spags, New York Giants Super Bowl winning coach Spags. Shout out to him, man. Spags is an evil genius. He's become a head coach before. It didn't work out for him, but him as a defensive coordinator is game changing and has been a very, very, very huge part of this Chiefs mini dynasty that we're kind of pulling up on, because if they can three-peat here, that's a dynasty. No question about it. So I was happy to see an amazing week 1 game, first game of the year. And I had the Chiefs winning. I had them covering the spread, and they did. So with these Thursday night games, folks, you're going to have to take my word for it, because I'm putting these out on Friday but I did have the Chiefs winning and covering the spread, and it looks like they did. So it is what it is there. So moving on to Philly and Green Bay. We finally get to talk about some games that haven't happened yet. Philly is a 3-point favorite against Green Bay. 3-point favorite against Green Bay. And they're at Green Bay. Can you believe that? Jordan Love, who everybody's been talking about, who got the mega deal, is an underdog to start the season. First off, and when I say at Green Bay, that's just what the schedule has. They're actually at a neutral field. So they have Philly as a 3-point underdog on a neutral field in Brazil. First off, why are we playing games in a place that our players can't go out and have fun? Why are we playing games in a place where we're saying Brazil is dangerous? You shouldn't be outside. Don't let your families go outside. We're here to play the game and then go home. They were uploading videos of them dancing in the stadium with Brazilian performers, and they were in the, like, they can't leave the stadium and they can't leave their hotels, which is crazy to me. So that's the first thing that stood out to me. They told them not to fall asleep on the plane. It was a lot of misinformation there too, but strange that we're playing a game where we cannot leave the hotel rooms. So that sticks out first. But diving into the actual game here, Jordan Love, I think, is going to be an MVP caliber player this year. I've been a big believer in Jordan Love ever since he got drafted, and he really got to sit behind an all-time great in Aaron Rodgers, who I'm not necessarily a fan of, but you can't deny his greatness. You can't deny his talent. You can't deny how he goes through his progressions, how he performs on the field. So sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for all that time proved to be effective. He does a lot of the things that Aaron does, and he's much more precise and poised than I think he would have been if he would have started off as the starter in Green Bay. And just looking at him, I mean, from the beginning of the season to the end, he had some nice games at the beginning of the season, but he really started to play consistently. And against Dallas, I mean, he completely took off. So he's coming off of a season where he kind of accelerated towards being a better player towards the end of the year. And on the other hand, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are focusing. They're trying to get back on track. they're trying to get back on track because the last 6 or 7 games last year, they played worse and worse and worse to where they played my New York Football Giants and they couldn't even beat that team. Like, the Giants handled them in the last game of the season, and then they got to the playoffs and got handled again. So this is a team that I'm really concerned about as far as, has Nick Sirianni lost the locker room? Is he going to be able to bring this team out and get them back motivated for a new season? I think he will. I think Nick Sirianni is actually a good coach. A lot of people say he just has a super team. I think he's a good coach. I think the players play hard for him. It's just about what happened this past year, and can he get that same level of control over the team that he's had in the past. There's been a lot of turnover at the coordinators spots. There've been a lot of turnover there, and the assistant coaches in general. So they have got to get some stability. Nick Sirianni has got to right the ship. So they've made some moves this offseason. They brought in Saquon Barkley. They brought in Jahan Dotson a couple of days ago. So they've made some big moves this offseason. And me as a Giants fan, I'm rooting for Saquon Barkley to go, 20 carries for 3 yards every week. That's what I'm hoping. I mean, that's just what I'm hoping, because you go to a division rival. I wish Saquon the best. I hope he continues to get paid. I want him to finish out his deal because he's a great guy. But I do not want him to succeed on the Philadelphia Eagles. Not a fan of that. So I hope Saquon Barkley has a bad game. I hope he stays healthy, but I hope he has a bad game. And they brought him in, and they brought Dotson in, and I think that really kind of addressed two needs for them. The Eagles have struggled to find that third receiver. I think Jahan Dotson was in line to be the second receiver in Washington, and I think that sort of equates to the third receiver here in Philly. You got 2 number ones essentially, and then you're going to slide in Jahan Dotson. And I think that is going to give them a little bit extra boost. I think they've got 3 really good wide receivers now. I think him going against the third corners is going to be dangerous for the rest of the league. And Saquon Barkley, they've had a bunch of good running backs over the last couple of years, but they haven't had Saquon Barkley. They just haven't. So these two players address some needs for them that I think they needed to address. They also addressed their secondary in the draft with Quinyon Mitchell, and they got a lot of guys that are have been drafted over the last couple of years that have got to step up, like Ringo. I'm not even sure if Ringo's still on their team, but you get the point. They've drafted a lot of defensive players that have got to step up. They've got some solid offensive line players, but they are going to miss Travis Kelce being gone. So there's a lot of turnover there, but at the same time, I think they've improved in some key spots. Now, I think the big thing in this game is Saquon Barkley versus Josh Jacobs. Who's the better player at this point? I think it's a push. I think it's a push, and I think it then goes to who's the better quarterback. Now, the Eagles' defense has been really, really suffocating. They've been really good, but I think guys like Brandon Graham, you're a year older. Fletcher Cox is retired. Bradbury is not the same corner he was. He's at safety now, and he's hurt. Darius Slay is a year older. They got a couple of young corners, and I think Jordan Love is going to be able to take advantage of that. I really think that Jordan Love is going to be able to show up week one and start what I think can be an MVP caliber season for him. Hopefully, this isn't a situation where he got paid and he's just not the same player after he gets paid. But I'm thinking he'll come into Philadelphia. I think he'll come in motivated to prove that he's earned that deal. And I think you'll see some spectacular plays, some spectacular throws, and what, again, I believe will be an MVP caliber season. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to go away quietly. So the spread in this game is Philly favored by 3. But I'm going to say the Green Bay wins. For some reason, maybe because I'm a Giants fan, but my mind is telling me that this game is going to be close. This game is going to be, a game-winning field goal. But my gut is telling me that this is going to be a blowout. But I'll go with my brain, and I'll say that I think that the Philadelphia Eagles will lose this game on a last-second field goal from Green Bay. In a high-scoring game. I think both of these offenses are going to come out motivated, and I think you'll see a ton of exciting plays. That's happening tonight, folks. That's happening tonight. So tune in, and you'll be able to tell if I'm right in a couple of hours. All right, third game that I'm going to be covering, and these are games that I've selected. I should have probably said that earlier on in the show, but these are games that I've selected that I think are prominent games that I'm interested in seeing, and I'm interested in talking about. So we got Tennessee and Chicago. Tennessee at Chicago. So Chicago's at home, and they're 4.5-point favorites. And Tennessee isn't a very good team. They're not. But still, they're going against a rookie quarterback, and they're 5-point underdogs. That's kind of crazy. So should Chicago win by more than 5? Yes, but we'll see how that goes. Caleb Williams is really what's going to bring eyes to this football game. He is the guy who we've all looked at as Mahomes Jr. Now, actually, we got a guy, Dylan Raiola, who looks like Mahomes with a helmet on, who has the same hairstyle, who is like the same height and weight, who does all the same mannerisms as him, who throws the ball the same way. But before him, Caleb Williams, a guy that can extend plays, a guy that can scramble with the best of them. I mean, Fran Tarkenton, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, he's that type of scrambler and makes crazy off-platform throws. He's done it in the preseason. He's got the weapons. He's got Odunze. He's got DJ Moore. He's got Keenan Allen. Whoever knows if Keenan Allen's going to be healthy, but he'll have two guys, Odunze and DJ Moore. So he's got weapons all over the field. He's extremely talented. The Bears were not a horrible team last year. So a lot of people are expecting the Bears to be a wild card contender because of the addition of Caleb Williams. And I think that could possibly happen. So I think he looked every part of it, of him being the first pick in the preseason so far. So we'll see how that whole thing works out. And then on the other side, you got Brian Callahan, who I think is stepping into a difficult situation because he has Will Levis. And I'm not a big believer in Will Levis. He's an offensive guy. He was with the Bengals. He didn't necessarily call plays, but he's replacing a guy in Mike Vrabel who didn't have a losing season for his first 4 years And then in the last 2 seasons, he went, somewhere around 500, just a little bit below 500. So that is a tough act to follow because Vrabel came in here and immediately started winning. So can he come in and have a Vrabel type of effect? We'll never know. We'll know, but right now there's no way to tell. He didn't call plays, like I said, so we're going to be surprised by what we see because we have not seen him run an offense yet, and I'm not sure if he's going to call plays. Tennessee Titans fans, let me know, or anybody that does know, let me know if Callahan is going to be calling plays. I would think so, with him being an offensive guy and getting called in. So that's going to be interesting. What are we going to get out of Will Levis? Let's be real. He's a guy that's got a lot of talent. He's a guy that got compared to Josh Allen, so he's got a ton of talent. It's just about, can he put it all together? Can he be an efficient quarterback? Can he protect the football? There's a lot of things that we have to figure out. So was Callahan brought in to fix Will Levis, or was Callahan brought in to get serviceable play out of Will Levis, and then go and get his guy next year in the draft, because I think they'll be picking top 3 next year because this team isn't very good. Not much to say besides this is going to be a Caleb Williams game. I think it should be about, how well Caleb Williams will play and the Bears win, rather than will the Bears win or will they not win. So I have the Bears winning. I have them covering this 4.5 point spread. I have them winning very easily just because the Titans are going through a lot of changes. They're rebuilding. They went from a team who was, second round exit, third round exit to, kind of declining. So they have got to restock, and I think they can do it, but do they have the right coach and do they have the right quarterback? If Will Levis is the guy and the Titans make this a competitive game and Will Levis has a good game, I think the Titans have a really bright short-term future. So again, I got the Bears winning. I got them covering that 5-point spread or 4.5 point spread. And let's move on to our next game this week. So next up, we got Washington at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is a 3.5 point favorite. So that means on a neutral field, Tampa Bay is a 0.5 point favorite over Washington. And if you're asking why am I saying that, it means in a betting situation, when you're in that situation, whoever is at home gets 3 points already. So that's why I say they're 0.5 or a 0.5 point favorite on a neutral field. So I think these teams are further apart than this. I really think they are. As a LSU fan and as a Giants fan, I'm rooting for Jayden Daniels, but I'm not rooting for him because they're a division rival. But I think Jayden Daniels is an extremely talented quarterback. I have no doubts that he can come into this league and be an effective quarterback and be a dynamic quarterback fairly early in his career. Now, I have a couple of questions. One, how is he going to mess with Cliff Kingsbury? Because we've seen a couple of things. I don't know if that's coming from the head coach or Cliff Kingsbury, where they're telling Jayden Daniels, don't be aggressive, don't throw it downfield, which I don't like because that's his game. That's why you drafted him. So why are you telling him not to be aggressive and throw the ball down the field? I don't think Jayden's going to listen, and I think they're going to have to jump on board because he's going to fire it downfield. So how's he going to mess with Cliff Kingsbury? I think he has a similar game to Kyler Murray. So I think he can be used a certain way, and I think Cliff could get a lot out of Jayden Daniels. And then take a look at the supporting cast that Jayden Daniels has. He has a very piss poor offensive line. He's got Terry, scary Terry. He's been a dog for forever, and he never gets any credit as a top receiver in this league. And I think he is. He's played with every quarterback under the sun. He's always productive, and he just never gets his credit. So shout out to Terry McLaurin. And I think he's a wide receiver 1. I think he's a dynamic guy. And I think he's going to have a great year with Jayden Daniels. Then you got Luke McCaffrey. He's a rookie, but, he's been getting the ball thrown to him a good amount in this preseason. And then you got guys like Dyami Brown. You got guys that have some talent that if they get plus quarterback play, Dyami Brown can be a good wide receiver. I think Dyami Brown is always a threat to beat someone down the field. He has some drops issues, but in college, I like Dyami Brown a lot. I thought he was a guy, again, that could stretch the field, and he's already shown some of that in the preseason and in training camp for the Washington Commanders. So if Jayden Daniels can be A plus quarterback in his first year, I expect this to be a formidable wide receiver trio or duo because I think he's going to elevate some of these players. Now then you got guys like Sanat at tight end, who I think he'll make a very quick impact at tight end. And you got Brian Robinson and you got Austin Eckler. So I think Brian Robinson is going to learn a lot from Austin Eckler, but Eckler is here. Let's not make any mistakes to catch the football. And I think he's going to be utilized a lot. He's going to have a really good season catching the football because the offensive line is going to force him to be an option in a lot of these check downs. So the supporting cast for Jayden Daniels scares me. They really do. They really do, especially the offensive line, because you look at LSU, he had a brick wall, pretty much a brick wall. Joe Burrow had to run around a lot more, but Jayden Daniels got to kind of sit back there, pat the ball, and throw downfield. So he's going to have to adjust to being under constant pressure this year, which I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to provide. So also, when you look at the other side, Todd Bowles is the coach. Todd Bowles is the coach for Washington, and Todd Bowles is one of the better defensive minds in the NFL. Going against a rookie quarterback in their first game, I think Todd Bowles, absolutely no way that this rookie quarterback is going to come in week one and do well against a Todd Bowles defense. And if he does, you got to tip your cap because that's an exceptional performance. But Todd Bowles, I think, is going to have the mental advantage here. Baker Mayfield on the other side. Baker is a guy that's been productive, a guy that's been more productive than Giants quarterbacks like Daniel Jones and a lot of other quarterbacks, but doesn't really get as much respect because he's been an arrogant guy in the background of his career. He's kind of not been a likable guy all the time, but I like Baker Mayfield. I think he's a guy that plays with a lot of fire. I think sometimes he can put his foot in his mouth, but he's a good quarterback. I'm not going to say he's an A-plus quarterback or even an A, but I think he's a solid B quarterback. I think if you have a good team around him, he can really make some things happen. I think he should have a huge day against this defense. This defense is not good at all. You got Mike Evans. Chris Godwin is not the same player that he used to be, but he's good enough to make some plays against this defense. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. The Commanders don't have much talent at edge or at corner. They got a lot of, edge 2 guys, edge 3 guys, probably edge 3 guys. Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, guys that, you say, okay, that's a decent edge guy, but not someone who I think is going to really provide a lot of pass rush, especially against a guy, playing tackle like what the Buccaneers are lining up. So I'm not really expecting them to affect the game at edge. They got a nice rotation in the interior, so maybe that can do something for them. But as far as edge and corner, which I think are really going to be pivotal, for most defenses, when you got a guy like Baker Mayfield who can sling the rock to guys like Mike Evans and Godwin, they don't have much at corner and they don't have much at edge. So I expect the Buccaneers to win this game running away. The Bucs were 5th in scoring defense last year. They gave up yards, but they when it was time to not give up points, they did a great job there. So I have the Buccaneers winning. The LSU fan in me frowns because Jayden Daniels loses his debut, but I think the Buccaneers are just a better team, and I think if you were going to bet on a game, I would bet on Tampa Bay to cover this spread. I would expect them to win by more than not negative. I expect them to win by more than 3.5 points against Washington just because of the matchup. They've really got to improve at corner. Washington does. They've got to do it quickly. All right, so the last game I'm going to be covering today, exciting matchup, the Jets versus the San Francisco 49ers. It's Aaron Rodgers take 2. It's Aaron Rodgers take 2. Last time he tried it out there with the American flag, took a snap. Immediately tore his Achilles. It was crazy. Again, I mentioned I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan, but everybody felt bad for Aaron Rodgers, and everybody felt bad for Jets fans when he went out there and tore his Achilles that quick because we were all waiting to see how he would do on this team, if that line would block for him, and the answer was no. They showed off the bat that they weren't willing to block for Aaron Rodgers, and I still have that same concern. Is this offensive line going to block for him this year? So when you look at this team beside the offensive line, The team is stacked. I mean, they got Aaron Rodgers, they got Sauce Gardner, they got guys like Quentin Williams, they got Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, Reddick. Whenever he decides to show up, I mean, that dude is. I mean, he doesn't care about money. He's just standing on morals and principles, isn't he? But he's not coming back this week. But whenever he does, they're gonna have a lot of options there for the Jets, and I mean, this is one of the best rosters in the NFL, if not arguably the best. Now, they've got to improve with the way that they play on the offensive line. Tyron Smith is a guy that's new. Can Tyron Smith stay healthy? We will never know that. I mean, Tyron Smith is one of the all-time great left tackles, but he can never stay healthy. Tyron Smith, the entire NFC East, Tyron Smith, um, Trent Williams, when they were both in the NFC East, and Andrew Thomas, those guys are always hurt. Pro Bowl, all pro level left tackles, and those guys are always hurt. So can he stay healthy? And then speaking of Trent Williams, guess who's back? Trent Williams saw Ricky Pearsall get shot and said, I'm coming back to the team. I mean, Trent loves violence. We know that guy loves to fight. We know he's like Finley from the WWE. He loves to fight. And when he saw that guy got shot and came back to the team, he said, okay, it's time for me to come back to be a 49er. But I'm worried about that Jets offensive line, and I'm not worried about the San Francisco 49ers offensive line. I'm not worried about, it seems like whenever Trent Williams suits up, the offensive line just looks amazing. And whenever he doesn't, they don't. I've never seen a left tackle by himself affect how the right tackle plays. I just haven't. Trent Williams is a real dog. So he's going to be back. They're going to be running the football at a high level. They're going to be able to protect Brock Purdy. So I think this game is going to be a very comfortable game for the 49ers skilled players. And this could be a very disruptive game and difficult game to get through for Aaron Rodgers and his players. But at the same time, I feel like, it's strength on strength. The Jets have a really good defense. I mean, they could make some things happen. Aaron Rodgers has a lot to prove. He's at home. He's a bitter old guy. He wishes that he could have played for the 49ers. All of these guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady that are from Cali that see Brock Purdy, they're like, you could have just let me play on the 49ers. So I think he'll come in with the chip on his shoulder. And I never do this. I always pick against Aaron Rodgers, but I'm going to pick Aaron Rodgers because I think the Jets defense, especially in the secondary, can really make some things happen and, cause some turnovers from Purdy, cause people to panic and act like Purdy is not a starting quarterback because he lost the game. And I think the Jets will actually come out and win this game, but I do not expect them to cover. I expect this to be like a 1 or 2 point game, something crazy like that. And I think it'll be another thriller primetime game, the Jets and the 49ers. So I'm taking the Jets here. I probably will be wrong because Aaron Rodgers historically is bad against the 49ers. But this time I'm going to go with my gut and I'm taking the Jets. So appreciate you all if you are still here this deep into the video. I'm really excited about this podcast. I'm going to try to keep this going every week. You all let me know some of the games that you're most excited about for the following week, for this next week coming up. And I'll be sure to, add some of these into my rotation. But before I get out of here, let's do a rapid schedule prediction. We're in week 1, so I don't have a record. I mean, I'm 1-0 because I picked KC, but I'm going to keep a tally of my record for the season. So rapidly, let's go through week 1. Kansas City to cover. Got that. Philly and Green Bay. I'm taking Green Bay. Atlanta and Pittsburgh with the 3-point favorite. Atlanta. I'm taking the favorite Atlanta. I'm taking Arizona against Buffalo. At Buffalo, 6-point underdogs. I'm taking Arizona. Chicago. 4.5-point favorites. I'm taking Chicago, as I mentioned. Cincinnati, 8.5-point favorites against New England. I'm taking Cincinnati, and I'm taking the spread. Houston, favorites against Indianapolis. I'm taking Houston. They're 2.5-point favorites. I'm taking that. Jacksonville against Miami. Miami's 3-point favorite. I'm taking Jacksonville. New Orleans against Carolina in the Megadome. New Orleans is 4.5-point favorites in the Dome. In the Dome, I'm taking New Orleans. they will cover that 4.5 point spread. Minnesota and New York Giants. No further. They have the Giants here early on in the week listed as favorites by 1 point. But I've looked again, and now it looks like the Giants are 3-point underdogs. So underdog, no underdog, the Giants are winning, and they're winning by more than 3 points. Book it. Book it, book it, book it. Okay, Chargers against the Vegas Raiders. I'm taking the Chargers to cover. 3.5 point favorites. Denver and Seattle. I'm taking Denver. 5.5 point favorites. I'm taking Denver. Seattle's 5.5 point favorites, but I'm taking Denver to beat Seattle. Go Bo Nix. Go out there and do your thing. I think he'll win that game. I think Geno Smith will make some mistakes. You got Pat Surtain, a dog out there. So there's a chance. There's a chance. So I'm taking Denver. Dallas and Cleveland. Dallas is 2.5 point underdog to Cleveland in Cleveland. I think Dallas will win that game. Tampa Bay at Washington. We already covered that. Tampa Bay. Rams and Detroit. I'm taking Detroit on Sunday Night Football. Will they cover? I think this will be a close game. So I wouldn't touch that. I would take Detroit to win, but I'm not going to say they'll win by more than 3.5. Jets in San Francisco. I'm taking the Jets. So you all let me know what you're looking for this weekend, what game you're looking the most forward to, and what you think of my picks and my takes. This is episode 1. I'm open to a lot of feedback because this is going to be something that I want to do the full season and maybe a little bit in the off season. But this is the first episode of Digge's Huddle, and thanks for watching.